Hello and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing #First Championship. I'm Sarah Hawkins, also known as Sarah Hawkey, and I will be your host this evening and one of your co-commentators for this GT7 based championship. We're now entering the second half of the season with tonight's race, and again I'm joined by motorsport enthusiast, racer and co-commentator Midnight ISO.
Sarah, pleasure to be here as always. It's time for the fifth round this week at Watkins, Glen, and pleasure to be in the commentary box alongside yourself again.
Yeah, always a pleasure to watch Lobby 2. And for anyone that's new to the championship, we're just going to give a quick series rundown. So we are back and better than ever for Season 2 of the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. We have an 8-event championship spanning over 16 race sessions and 8 weeks in total. Lots of different car manufacturers on the grid and potentially over 27 drivers with some great tracks on the calendar. We have 3 official time sessions with a reverse grid sprint race up first, followed by qualifying, and then tonight will be treated to a 34-lap feature race around Watkins Glen. Okay, Midnight, could you give everyone a little bit of an overview of the event session format and point scale, please?
Yes, not a problem. Okay, first off, we have our ever-popular sprint race to kick off things, which is going to be in reverse average points scored championship order. The race itself will be 15 minutes. It's completely open for strategy and tyres alike and a rolling start, and which will then be swiftly followed up by a 10-minute timed qualifying session, which will form the grid for the feature race. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The tyre rule is that you have to set your fastest lap on the tyre that you will start the feature race on. So that's a little feature that we adore, and it creates for a lot of strategy and a lot of strategic interest. Which is obviously preceding the main event of the night, the feature race, which is going to be 34 laps at Watkins Glen. It's going to be a grid start, and there's no mandatory stop per se, but you have to use 2 different sets of tyres, so 2 different compounds, which will definitely shake things up, particularly around this high wear track. The point system itself, starting with qualifying, there are only points for the top 3. 3 for first, 2 for second, and 1 for third. The sprint race itself is 12 points for the win, down to 1 point for 12th. And in the feature race, it's somewhat like Grand Prix points with 25 points for a win, then down to 22 for second, and downwards and onwards to 14th for 1 point. There's also a 1 point bonus for the sprint fastest lap and a 2 points bonus for the feature race fastest lap.
Yeah, thank you very much, Midnight, for running through that information for me. So before we go over to the driver overview of tonight, we'll just give you a little bit of a sneak peek of how the championship standings are looking currently, obviously after the 4th round of the season. As you can see, we've got a lot of drivers, and they've scored some, a lot of points so far. And I'm sure, tonight across the both lobbies, again, all of the drivers will be scoring a lot of points. And just going back to last week in the sprint race podium, we had Piper in the Viper coming home in first place, with obviously unfortunately LB Racing and Deadline getting post-race penalties, but nevertheless LB Racing coming home in second and Deadline coming home in third. And then for the feature race podium, we had Sophia in that Renault RS01 coming home in first with quite a lead on the rest of the pack. We then had LB Racing coming home in second again, and Deadline in third for the feature race again. So I don't know about you, Midnight, but I'd like to go and overview the drivers and then get ready to watch some racing.
I'm totally on board with that. I do just want to replicate what you said about last week, though. The racing was absolutely brilliant, and I urge everyone who hasn't already seen it on YouTube, check it out, which was at Deep Forest. And yeah, what can I say? More of that tonight, please.
Yeah, let's get into it. And to start off, we have a Big Crazy Bertie, one of our Nighthawk Racing admin team and Lobby 2 host. Bertie has been having some amazing races so far, but the all-important question, can Bertie replicate his high speed performance here around Watkins Glen. Bertie is currently in 12th place with 111 points. Next up, we then have Simon and Simon in the RX Vision. This will be Simon's first experience of the Watkins Glen, also known as the Glen. Another track to add to the collection, and the more laps Simon is doing, the more comfortable and confident he's getting behind the wheel of that car, and he's picking up some real speed. Simon is in 21st place on 53 points. Next up, we have Piper and the Viper, and I'm never going to stop saying that catchphrase. Piper getting his first maiden win last time due to some post-race penalties, but will Piper be around or on the podium again tonight? Piper is currently in 22nd place with 49 points. Next up, we then have Sharon racing again tonight in the Ferrari 458. Sharon is also a Twitch streamer and streams the races and practice sessions from her point of view, so make sure to check her out on her Twitch, which is Sharon_fly. She also has a beautiful singing voice too. Sharon is currently in 20th place on 55 points. Next up, we then have Haslett, aka Saber Venom as you might see him on the game, driving the BMW M6, and he'll be looking to have some good battles on track with the other drivers again tonight. Having a few quiet but consistent races so far, I'm sure Haslett will be aiming to pick up a big haul of points here tonight. Haslett is in 15th place with 80 points. Our next driver is Deadline, and Deadline is looking for a win here tonight. Will he be able to get one, or maybe two potentially? Deadline in the BMW M6 will be looking to make some daring moves stick. We all know that Deadline can defend, but will he be able to defend from the fast drivers around him in Lobby 2 tonight? Deadline is in 23rd place with 47 points. Next up, we then have our very own Ziggy the Zigstar. Again, one of the Nighthawk admins back in the Supra tonight and looking to unleash the beast again. We saw Coach in Lobby 2 win with the Supra. Can Ziggy make it a double Supra win across tonight? Let's see what he can do. Ziggy is currently in 24th place with 37 points overall. Next up, we then have Ripon de Terran. Ripon is bringing the 4GT power around Watkins Glen tonight. We all know how fast Ripon has been in that 4GT. Can he fight for a podium here tonight? Ripon de Terran is currently in 19th place with 72 points. Our next driver is Yvonne, and Yvonne is back again tonight after unfortunately missing out last week. But she's back to fight for the podium and with the podium drivers. Yvonne is currently driving that Beetle brilliantly, placing it in all the right places on track. Yvonne and Bertie are definitely ones to watch, as they always provide some on-track battles between the two of them. Yvonne is also the community manager and one of the organisers behind the Init Esports and Screen to Speed team. Yvonne is currently in 17th place with 77 points. And our last driver rounding off the grid tonight, we have Mariah, also known as Late Speed. She's a new addition to the grid tonight, and after racing her in the Screen to Speed Winter Cup, I know for certain that Mariah is super fast and not afraid to challenge and fight for positions. I'm excited to see the Lamborghini out on track. Best of luck in your first ever Nighthawk racing event, Mariah. Well, that rounds out the Nighthawk racing grid for Lobby 2 Race 5, and what a grid we've got yet again tonight. I'm excited to get into the comms box and watch the racing commence. Let's switch back and see some cars on the grid.
Okay, and to the sprint race grid. Starting in P9 in the RX Vision, we have Simon. In P8, new to the series, we have Mariah, or Late Speed, as we will know her in that new Huracan. In P7, we have Big Crazy Bertie in the BRZ. In P6, we have Yvonne in the Little Yeetle Beetle. And in P5, in the 4GT, we have Ripon de Terran.
And in P4, we have a Deadline in the BMW M6. We then have Haslett, aka Saber Venom, also in the BMW M6. And in second place, we have Sharon Fly in the Ferrari 458. And P1 tonight, we have Piper in the Viper.
Perfect. I think it's time for that old sprint race now, Sarah.
Yeah, let's get into it. I'm excited. Right, so we are getting ready for the start of the sprint race around Watkins Glen. We have Piper in the Viper starting us off in pole position for the sprint race. As he gets ready, going across the start-finish straight now, and away they go. And it looks like already Sharon has got a very good start. It's on the back of Piper already going into turn 1.
Yep, good start from all so far. Single file onto the first corner, but let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah, exactly. I was just watching across the field. Everyone got away nice and cleanly there.
Yeah, we've got a little bit developing with Saber Venom, or Haslett as we know him, and Deadline and Sharon coming down into the fast chicane.
Yeah, as that Deadline goes onto that inside line, looks to get that move done before the chicane. We in lobby 1, we did see a lot of side-by-side action going into that chicane. It seemed like a driver's favourite to get the move done going into that chicane.
Yeah, I can say it's he or she who's latest on the brakes tends to win there. It's worth saying for this sprint race, we've got a couple of drivers. Oh, Sharon going deep into the left-hander. I don't think there was any contact between Deadline and Sharon, but yeah, Sharon going a little bit wide. But there's a couple of drivers on the soft tyre, such as Deadline, who is clearly making waves early on. I think it was Deadline, Simon. I think the other one was... Do you know what? I've forgotten, Sarah. We've got 3 drivers out there.
I believe that the soft runners in the sprint race was Yvonne, Deadline and Simon. I think they were the only ones on the softs. Everyone else deciding to go on that medium set of tyres.
Piper going very slowly at the end of the sector there. He's dropped back to 7th for some reason, and Bertie's back there too. There's a couple of drivers who are off the back at the moment, like Bertie and Simon. And for some reason, a couple of drivers just, having a bit of a awkward middle sector.
Yeah, I was just on board with Mariah. She got quite a good move done on Sharon going onto that inside line of the final corner. But yeah, looks like and Yvonne as well dives into the inside line into turn 1, gets the move done, and we've got the 3 ladies fighting each other here going on to the second lap.
Yeah, the 3 screen to speed ladies all together. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, and obviously racing with these women in the Screen to Speed Winter Cup, and hopefully in the Sprint Cup this weekend as well. I know obviously a lot of respect between those girls there.
Piper with a very ambitious move on Yvonne. Made it stick, but they came back from miles. Very happy on the brakes there, it would seem. Loads of confidence.
Yeah, as we see Piper and Yvonne going side by side here.
Good clean racing so far.
Yeah, and a lot of ambitious moves, but a lot of moves that are paying off so far.
Yeah, and at the moment it does look like at the front, Deadline is trying to streak away, saying that he had a time penalty he's just served, and Haslett has just got up into P1, and Haslett is on those medium tyres as well, also in the M6. That is not what Deadline needed, so he's going to be regretting picking up that time penalty.
Yeah, obviously going back to lobby 1 as well, quite a few drivers picking up kind of track limit penalties, which might not affect your race too much in the sprint race, but in the feature race it definitely kind of adds up towards the end of the race.
Certainly does. At the moment, Deadline looks like he's trying to come back at Haslett. Definitely needs to make most of those soft tyres whilst he has them. He looks up the inside into turn 1. Haslett gives him a little bit more room, perhaps more room than what he should have, because it has allowed Deadline to get side by side, coming through the long right and left-handers down the back straight. And I think that's going to allow Deadline, by the time they get to the chicane, up into P1, but Brooke Slaters is going to win this battle.
Yeah, and obviously still going side by side into the chicane there. Deadline just carrying a little bit more speed going into the chicane as Mariah goes quite wide and picks up quite a lot of grass coming out of that section there.
Yep, and a half-second penalty for good measure.
Yeah, and Yvonne just in front of Piper just picked up a 1 second penalty as well, unfortunately. Like me and Kirk in Lobby 1 were saying that this track, even if you put, one wheel 1 inch off track, it will
It bites.
a track limit. Yeah, it bites a lot, and the track limit penalty, the stewards aren't afraid to give drivers some penalties around here.
Ripping to Terran, feigning a move on Hassler. He's thinking about it, and you're dead right. This track bites. It seems to be a bit of a feature of all the tracks we've been to so far. If you do push a little bit too hard, there's a barrier often very, very close to you.
Yeah, around here, obviously, drivers having to be aware of the barriers, but also the grass, which is, for most corners, either side of the track. And although, they tell gamers to go touch some grass, sim racers definitely don't want to touch this sort of grass.
Yeah, quite agree. And as you were saying about the old track limits, so particularly as you come into turn 1 that Deadline is going through now, the temptation with that super wide runoff is to push a little bit further onto that curve than what you should be. And then, there you go, more time penalties.
Yeah, it's one of those unfortunate, that turn 1 there. It's the natural kind of undulation of the track. It wants to swing you out all the way, but track limits say otherwise, unfortunately.
Yeah, agreed. It looks like the grid is spacing out a little bit more. Deadline is still pushing hard on his 4th lap, but I'm not sure those soft tyres are going to last to the end of the sprint. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but Haslett or Saber Venom, P2, looks like he's going to start coming back towards Deadline in the next lap or two. But at the moment, Rip and Deterrin having a absolutely great race running in P3, but Mariah, or Late Speed as some know her, P4, these I'm going to be keeping an eye, particularly on these top 4, Sarah.
Yeah, I've got to say, like a massive kind of shout out to Mariah, Sharon and Yvonne, P4, 5 and 6. The ladies are doing well tonight.
Quite right. And from what I've seen so far, I want to see absolutely more of them in our championships as well, and more close wheel-to-wheel racing.
Yeah, and that goes with anyone as well. Obviously, if you like what you see and you want to come and join us on track, please feel free to message us, get in contact, and we're gonna love to have some more drivers on the grid with us.
Well, Simon getting some bonus kudos points. If anyone has played Project Gotham Racing, they'll know what I'm on about. Having a little bit of a flare moment there with a little bit of a drift through the right-hander, but at the moment, Bertie has fallen off the back of the pack with some big damage, so he's not having a great one at Watkins this race.
No, a lot of drivers obviously only having limited time around Watkins, Glen, and maybe Bertie potentially might be one of them. But yeah, a lot of, especially in Lobby 1 as well, a lot of the drivers are not necessarily kind of strong or don't feel as strong as they do at other tracks at Watkins Glen. I know for a fact a few drivers were calling this their bogey round. They weren't expecting some good results, but I mean everyone in Lobby 1 got some good results, and hoping the same for Lobby 2 as well.
Yeah, I know we often come down to this analogy, it's a bit like a Marmite track. It genuinely is a track that you love or you hate, and as far as I'm concerned, it's one of my personal favourites. I enjoy racing around here, but the tyre wear is high and the challenge is also high. But it's if you can find the groove or not, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I like this track as well. Obviously, racing in the Screen Speed Winter Cup, had a good couple of battles with a few drivers in that championship round here, and had a pretty strong showing myself. It only happened, a few times, but and we've driven this track on a few other games, and I was saying to Kirk as well that me and Kirk have had our fair share of battles around Watkins Glen, and that's all that needs to be said about that one.
Yeah, I remember it well, but less said about that one the better, because I think there was a wall involved at the end of that story.
Yeah, a little bit of form, and also kind of like a face full of other drivers.
yeah, that will happen. Okay, battle for P2 is heating up. I mean, never mind these guys catching Deadline, although his tyres are now close to being dead at the beginning of lap 6. And we know from Lobby 1 this was a 9-lap race. But Ripon Deterin looks like he's absolutely bringing the fight to Haslett at the moment, who, I have to be honest, his front left does not look good, Sarah.
No, we saw that again in. Sorry to go back to Lobby 1, but some drivers on the soft were holding their tyres on a little bit longer than some of the cars that were on medium. So it just goes to show all cars having different characteristics and they're slightly different tyre wear issues.
And it's also going to go down to driving style as well. I just caught by going on board with Haslett, it might have been that one corner only, but if you see the tyre gauge, if you see a bright red circle around the actual tyres, it means you're overheating that tyre in that corner. And this, a GT7 basically tyre wear squares with heat that you're putting through the tyres. So at the moment, Haslett, you can see he's under pressure, and there you go, Ripon Deterin seizing, Mariah following him through as well. So Haslett, feeling the pressure and the heat from his tyres, drops 2 places in one corner.
Yeah, Mariah obviously was at the back of that pack, but saw the door was open and was going through no matter what. And I'm sure Haslett will he would have been watching in his rearview mirror, but he would have tried to be as defensive as he could, but also you leave that inch open and the drivers around you are going to try and take full advantage of that. And Ripon Deterin looks like he's on the chase for Deadline now.
Yep, and just having a quick look through the pack, I've spotted Simon. He looks like he's actually having a much better race apart from a half spin. He's improving race on race. Bertie looks like he's gone to soft tyres, maybe trying to steal the fastest lap at the moment, because there's no way that Deadline's going to improve on his time. He's now coming under pressure from Ripon Deterin. Sharon having a quiet but solid P5 in P5 at the moment, and Yvonne just behind her as well, with Piper, our last week's sprint winner, in P7, sorry. So it's all... do you know what? I'm seeing a load of good racing from a lot of drivers out here today, and a lot of respect being shown too.
Yeah, which is obviously the main thing that you want to see on track, respect amongst all the drivers. And I've got to say, Lobby 2 always provides us with some great racing.
Going for P1 perhaps, not this corner.
No, thinks slightly better of it, and potentially, going over that start-finish straight. If he gets in the slipstream of Deadline, I'm sure he'll be trying to make a pass going into turn 1.
Yeah, but one thing we know from last season with Deadline in that RX Vision, he will defend tooth and nail for every single point, let alone for a P1.
Yeah, I think Deadline, knowing that he's not necessarily got the tyres underneath him, to produce some stellar lap times, he'll be taking that defensive line and trying to close the door for Ripon Deterin.
Yeah, and his front left is absolutely dead, and the front right isn't far behind, with Ripon Deterin a much better quality medium tyres. Looks like,
I think Deadline will be happy that BMW is a rear-wheel drive, not a front-wheel drive now.
Yeah, I'm not kidding on that one. Yeah, I think it can only be a matter of time before Ripon Deterin finds a way through. And Mariah's keeping a watchful eye on P3 at the moment. Looks like Haslett has fallen back, picked up a half-second penalty somewhere. So, at the moment, Deadline managing to hold that position, but can he hold it for the next lap and a half there?
Well, it's going to be a tough ask considering that tyre wear, and Ripon Deterin is trying to figure out a way around Deadline. He's peeping, trying to use some different lines and trying to get out of that slipstream to see if he can make a move on Deadline as he goes into the inside. Deadline taking that slightly wider line. Oh, and Lightspeed and Ripon Deterin come together. That will definitely be a one for the stewards to look at afterwards.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. That's unfortunate too, coming together, coming into the boot, and Ripon Deterin ending up back in P4 with pressure from Sharon. We'll go back to the front in a moment. But yeah, that's not what we wanted to see, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate there. But sometimes when you're being defensive and one person's being defensive and the other person's attacking, you do get to the same corner at the same time. So yeah, just unfortunate, a little bit of contact between the two racing drivers there. But it's we're nearly at the end of the sprint race, and I'm sure um, they'll be fighting during the feature race. It's good to see all the drivers remarkably close on track.
Yeah, quite right. And at the moment, we do have Mariah's now taken the fight to Deadline. I didn't think she was going to get that close in a couple of corners, but she's right on the gearbox of Deadline as they're coming into the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, obviously Mariah's tyres look in a little bit better shape compared to Deadline's. But on the final lap, will we see Deadline being, having his most defensive drive to date? Shutting off all those apexes, shutting the door on Mariah.
He'd have to go some to beat what he did at Nürburgring Grand Prix last season. But that was a defensive drive for the ages.
Yeah, I think you would have felt that one as well.
I did feel that one personally. Mariah looks like she's going to go for the wide line around from Deadline. Doesn't quite work. Ends up just nose to tail. But yeah, Deadline absolutely fighting tooth and nail. He's just going to sit on the apexes, I believe.
Yeah, and obviously, he's got a few corners left to seal the deal, as we say. He's trying his best to get that win.
And Rippenterren's got on past. Sorry, I was about to say he's on the back of Haslett already, but he's passed him.
Yeah, obviously a lot of speed from Rippenterren, in this sprint race.
Good recovery.
And hopefully that will carry on into bit of a drift. Finishing off in style, shall we say, for Mariah there, drifting around that final corner.
Deadline takes the win. Mariah second. Rippenterren's going to take P3. Haslett P4. Sharon P5. Yvonne P6. Woo! And it looks like Piper is coming around. He's had a big accident somewhere, I think, on this lap, and he's got rather bad front end damage. Looking a bit sorry for himself, but he's going to get a haul of points in P7. Simon P8 is already finished, with Bertie in P9, but crucially also is going to get the point for the fastest lap, Sarah.
Yeah, and obviously points make prizes at the end of the day. Every point, every position picks up some points, so that helps Bertie going into the championship, and picking up a few bonus points as well for the fastest lap. Just shows Bertie's got the speed, and I'm sure he was just using that sprint race as kind of a data gathering session.
Yeah, at the end of the day, as you said, he wasn't having the greatest of sprints early on, but he's maximised what he could have done. He's learned what he can. He will have all the data for the tyres and picked up an extra point for the fastest lap. So good bit of outside thinking there. But story of the sprint, Sarah. Deadline making those soft tyres last despite being worn out. That's a good victory for him, and it's a very, very good performance. But Mariah and Rippenterren also stars the show as well today.
Yeah, obviously, being Mariah's first ever Nighthawk event, she did remarkably well. Obviously, it was unfortunate that Mariah and Rippenterren did come together a little bit, and I'm sure the stewards will look at that. But nevertheless, both having some really good results, and yeah, I mean, what a win for Deadline. A very defensive drive yet again, and we all know that Deadline can defend pretty well.
Quite right. I mean, this is one thing he definitely knows how to do. Is one, go fast, and then two, defend. Which, bear in mind, he took the soft tyres. So he did exactly what he had to have done. Get out front early and then defend to save his life. So, great driving from, I think, all the field so far. And it's good news for what will come soon after qualifying and the feature race.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where everyone qualifies, and then excited to get into the feature race, which we'll treat to 34 laps, and I'm sure obviously having 9 laps here for the sprint race, we're in for a treat for the feature race. Well, it looks like we've had a very interesting qualifying session indeed. So, Starting off the grid in P10, we have Piper in the Viper. In P9, we have Simon. In P8, we have Yvonne in the Yeetle Beetle. P7, we have Saber Venom, aka Haslett, in the BMW. And in P6, we have our very own Big Crazy Bertie in the Subaru BRZ.
And for the top 5, we have Ripon Deterrent in the 4GT. P4, we have Mariah or Late Speed in the Huracan. In P3, a well-earned P3 with Sharon in the 458. P2, we have a Deadline in that M6. And on P1, we have one of our own admin, Ziggy himself, in that Supra. And 5 lights. And they're away. Top 3 drivers on soft tyres. So a Deadline gets a cracking start. Ziggy on pole has fallen back into the pack as all the drivers head down to the first turn. Sharon up to P2, Ziggy down to P3, Mariah P4, Ripon Deterrent P5, Haslett side by side with Yvonne in P7, Piper in P8, Bertie and Simon P9 and P10.
Yeah, everyone getting away cleanly, and obviously Ziggy losing out a few places there. But I mean, what a qualifying session from Ziggy and Sharon, as well as light speed, all on the soft tyres. But remarkable times, and it's good to see them starting so high up.
Quite right, but a good mixture of strategies as well. A couple of drivers taking the opportunity to jump to the soft tyre, get a couple of points for their efforts in qualifying, but it will definitely hurt them after about lap 6 in this race.
Yeah, obviously, speaking from experience, Midnight was racing in Lobby 1 and decided to go on a few set of softs, so I'm sure you're the right person to know how it feels around here.
As I said to Pedro before the race, I just like to keep you guessing.
And guessing you made us do. As we see, Deadline looking like he's
Ziggy!
Oh no! Unfortunately, Ziggy into the wall, picking up quite a bit of damage there. I was just about to say, Deadline creating a little bit of a gap for himself to Sharon. But yeah, unfortunately, not quite sure what happened there. But it's obviously very unfortunate to Ziggy getting that damage by the end of lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely is. But he'll gather himself up and go for the race. That's what he's here for. He's here to enjoy himself. But I have to speak from experience, as I'm sure you will too, Sarah. In that final sector, if the tyres are cold or you're just a little bit eager, perhaps both, on that loud throttle pedal, that is the easiest place to spin on this track.
Oh, 100%, yeah. It's very difficult, that part of this track, when your tyres are cold or you're getting close to a few drivers. It's very difficult to fight the car through that sector.
Ooh, good move from Piper on Bertie up to P6 with Simon keeping a watchful eye in P8. He's doing well so far. Somehow Haslett has fallen back down to P9 unseen by us. But he's on the medium tyre, so he will come back throughout the race. Ziggy hasn't pitted as of yet, but I feel he might be in this lap, but maybe he just might. Bear in mind the stints are quite short with this track because of the tyre wear. Maybe he'll just he'll carry it until the pit stop, perhaps. He'll only be up to about lap 7 or 8 anyway. It looks like the drivers are spacing out a little bit now. We've got Deadline, who's on those soft tyres with Sharon in P2. They're going to try and make a break for it, but Mariah in that Huracan, which is not a car I would have personally picked, but she's making it work for herself. Traditionally, that car is definitely one you either get it to work or you don't, and well, I can't. But doing well in P3 at the moment with Ripon Deterrent, and both drivers who showed very well in the sprint race, and it's carrying on here so far, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously I've not got much experience, but it looks like Mariah's got quite a lot of experience and, potentially a car that kind of suits her driving.
somewhere Piper's fallen back behind Bertie, back down to P7, but he's followed by Simon, Ziggy in the pits to repair that damage. He can't shoulder it any longer, and Haslett in P9. It's a good showing so far from Simon. I personally did a little bit of training with him, a little bit of testing. I'm not taking credit for that, but it is good to see that he's definitely picked up a few pointers from other drivers, and he's learned the track and definitely doing a lot better and moving forward to this race.
Yeah, and I'm sure his confidence is building every race that he's doing.
Yeah, and as we always say, it's tens of hours of driving round on GT7 rather than hundreds or thousands as some of our drivers have. But Haslett looks like he might be able to move. Simon goes a bit wide and onto the grass. Gets away with it, no damage, and lives to fight for another day.
Yeah, very lucky not to get damaged there. I think, he's, like you say, not much experience around this track, so he's doing really, really well so far. And, it's quite easy to do, getting a few tyres on the grass. And once you get on the grass, it just kind of wants to take you, and you don't have too much control as to which way you're going to end up. But yeah, lucky that Simon didn't pack up any damage there.
Yeah, and then as I've heard in many category of formula many a time, funny thing is cars don't turn very well on the grass or in air, so kind of the way you don't want to be. But again, he got away with it, and the fight continues. Deadline going very wide out at turn 1. Looks like he had to get on the brakes, off the throttle, to avoid a penalty. No, he's still got one. He'll be seething about that one. And it looks like Sharon, dark horse of the race and the prancing horse, is going to be going for the lead. I don't think Deadline's going to be able to defend from that, particularly when they come up to the penalty zone.
No. Yeah, it's obviously light speed as well, just behind Sharon. These two will be looking to capitalise on Deadline's penalty.
Oh no! Coming together in the right-hander. It looks like Mariah and Sharon. I'm not sure what entirely happened. I think there was a little bit of a moment from Sharon, but I can't be positive. It's one for the stewards. Unfortunately, front-end damage for Sharon. At least it's only that. But it looks like Mariah in P3 picked up more damage. So that saved Deadline at the front there.
Yeah, obviously very unfortunate. That we never like to see two drivers coming together. But like Midnight said, one for the stewards to look at afterwards.
I know it's early on, Sarah, but at the moment, I'm really like Rippin' to Terran's chances here. He's on the back of Deadline with those medium tyres and a bit more fuel, which is something I never thought I'd say for a Ford GT. And yeah, it looks like he's just hanging with Deadline. I think this is his for the taking. There's a bit of a repeat of the sprint between these two.
Yeah, I was literally just about to mention the sprint race. And obviously, Rippin' to Tearing having quite a good sprint race. Obviously, unfortunate kind of contact between himself and Lightspeed. But I'm sure he'll be looking to kind of rectify his good performances. And what a performance he's having so far.
Yeah, Sharon also trying to make a move on Piper down into turn 1, making her way back up. Good racing so far. Piper gave the room, but got the better exit out of turn 1, and now it's on the offensive against Haslett. Never know where to look in this lobby today.
No, I was just keeping an eye on that battle between Deadline and Rippin' to Terran. There's some corners that I think Rippin' to Terran's slightly stronger than Deadline, and he's trying his best to capitalise on that. But Deadline looking very strong as always, and looking for that second victory of the night.
Yeah, quite right. Well, I just saw Piper. He took the position up to P6, and unfortunately 2 corners later caught the grass, and then he skated around the barrier and just about got away with it, but down to P8, but still circulating. Leaves the fight to carry on between Sharon on the soft tyres with the front end damage against Haslett in P6, who he's not looking that comfortable this week on this course. I mean, again, this is one of those courses that you love or you hate. And if you're having a moment where you're not entirely feeling the grip, it can really bite you and it saps your confidence very quickly.
Oh yeah, 100%. It feels good when you get it right, but when you're learning the course and you're trying your best to keep it on the course, it can be quite difficult and quite stressful, especially around kind of a high speed track like this with some technical sections. Saber Venom, aka Haslett, probably learning as he goes around here. As we said earlier, it's not everyone's kind of cup of tea, not everyone's favorite track, but so far P6, 6 laps down. So still a long race to go for Haslett, and I'm sure he'll be making his way up the grid.
So I want to give a shout out at the moment to Bertie. I think he started 9th, it was 8th or 9th anyway. He's on the soft tyres and he's quietly been making his way through the field. He's up to P5 and just off the back of Yvonne on those medium tyres and chasing down Mariah at the moment. So shout out to Bertie and Yvonne. Looks like they're taking the fight up the field.
Yeah, and obviously we know that Bertie and Yvonne have had a couple of battles this season. They seem to be quite, evenly matched on pace. So, I'm excited to see another battle brewing between those two.
I've got maybe an insight, Sarah, something I've just noticed. I'm looking at Deadline and Rip and Deterrent, and the difference between them is the gap's not increasing or coming down. I feel Rip and Deterrent's being strategic here. I think he's sat in Deadline slipstream, just saving fuel.
Potentially, obviously, we know that 4GT is a little bit of a gas guzzler. So, potentially very smart of Rip and Deterrent to use Deadline for his advantage. Try and hold on to as much fuel as he could.
Yeah, that seems to be the way of things. But so far, Sarah, it looks like good driving from all drivers so far. I think... Oh, Ziggy, when he went into the pits, he has gone to the hard tyres, so he's changed strategy after his spin. I think that'll... He'll be able to go very, very long on those hard tyres. Maybe bring himself back into contention. And we know he's got speed around here. He was in P1, and this is his first race session of the day. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the sprint due to timings, and as things will happen in real life. And he'll be trying to make his way back up through the field towards the end of the race.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, we saw a few people in Lobby 1 also going on the hard set of tyres. As obviously, around a track like this and some of the other tracks that we've been doing, the tyre wear, it does burn through that rubber quite quickly. So potentially, if you feel comfortable on the hard tyres, you can go that a little bit longer into the race. Obviously, we know that Dark Lord in Lobby 1 managed to pull off a one-stop going from the hards to the medium, so it can be done.
Though I wouldn't personally recommend it because that must not have been fun for him. Although update, and unfortunately unseen by us, Rip and Deterrent has dropped to 5th from 2nd and has massive damage, front and rear aero and front right suspension. So he's clearly had a moment. I think probably spin at the end of sector 1 perhaps, maybe off the barrier into the bus stop.
Potentially, we seem to be missing quite a lot of accidents here. We're focused on the battles, but unfortunate for Rip and Sarah. And also behind them, Sharon made a little bit of a half spin coming out of the first corner, which we know obviously if you take on that a little bit too much curb, it does want to send you facing the wrong way. So unfortunate for Sharon as well.
Yeah, these things will happen, particularly when you've got no rear right tyre. So unfortunately, half spins, particularly in the 458, will happen. But it's a long race, 34 laps, just about an hour or so. And as Rip and Deterrent comes out of the pits, Sharon comes into the pits. So that's going to promote Ziggy up to P9 on those hard tyres as he just glances the barrier.
So getting very close to that wall.
Despite the damage, Mariah, starting on those mediums, I think she's about to take the lead. Deadline's picked up a half-second penalty somewhere. This very well may be change of the lead, Sarah.
Potentially. Yeah, unfortunate, Deadline picking up another penalty. Mariah goes into that inside line, carrying a lot more speed than Deadline, and seems to just pulled in front of Deadline here, going into the final sector.
Oh, he's trying hard. Absolutely getting squirrely coming out of that corner, putting the power down hard.
Yeah, I think obviously Deadline will be a little bit disappointed that he lost that position under a penalty, but obviously it goes to show, all the drivers around him are keeping him on his toes, keeping him honest, and obviously Mariah taking the net lead at the moment.
Yeah, and a lot of the... Well, I'm going to say this about Deadline specifically. Very nice and chill guy, but as soon as you get him on a racetrack, absolutely pushes to the limit. I mean, you could probably say that for a lot of our drivers, but it's that thing that we discussed last week. As soon as the visor goes down, you're trying as hard as anything and trying your heart out. And you can just see it the way he's applying the throttle and making that car squirm under throttle application. And Yvonne, though, quiet, P3, making it work so far on that little beetle.
Yeah, obviously we know. Oh, Mariah going a little bit wide, which allows Deadline to go onto that outside line and back into the slipstream of Mariah. But yeah, going back to Yvonne, having some really strong races. Unfortunately, she couldn't race last week, but she is back and she's doing her best as always, which she's doing really well so far.
Yeah, and I had a personal conversation with Yvonne after last week. She was unhappy that she couldn't make it, but we had Sophie sub in her place, and I had a really great race with her at Deep Forest. So it's great to see people can just join into the championship and have a good race. So all good fun and all good racing so far. But I think Deadline's got to pit this lap. His tyres are shot.
Yeah.
Willie though, Willie.
Yeah, I would say Willie or Wednesday. But yeah, we saw, you can drive on the rims, but you do lose quite a substantial amount of time to the drivers around you. And Deadline picking up a half-second penalty again. Obviously, this does build up and will, affect, potential some strategic calls, if not, his race order towards the end of the race if he keeps picking up these penalties.
Yeah, it's one thing I learned about the sprint. Just cool it down, calm it down a little bit. Don't get a silly penalty and you won't lose a position.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think he seems to be wiggling a little bit, potentially, struggling with that front tyre wear. And as soon as that rear starts to go on that rear-wheel drive, the BMW will definitely be kind of a tricky car to handle.
I completely agree. Ripon Terran has set the fast lap of 1:46.3, running in P5 after having that damage fixed. I'm fairly sure all he did was just fix the damage, slot on a new set of tyres, and he's gone for it. I don't think he put in any fuel at all. He's just absolutely hooning that car around, trying to catch back up and regain the time he lost. So Ripon Terran on the move. Haslett picked up another half-second penalty, which is about to serve. Somehow, how did Deadline just never get past, even with dead tyres and time penalties? It seems like it takes forever someone to get past him. Maybe that's just the defensive driving capabilities.
Yeah, I definitely think his defensive driving does help him in these sort of situations. He knows where to place the car and when.
Yep. Mariah still going round, still with that damage and that dead rear left. Deadline still going around with 3 dead tyres. And Yvonne with the dead front left as well. It does seem to be a lobby 2 tactic. Go as far as you can for as long as you can. Although Haslett given up on that one in pits.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Obviously, Deadline, he's got one working tyre at least. But yeah, obviously I don't think it would do him any favours lap times wise. Obviously having 3 completely worn out tyres. But I mean, if he's confident enough to keep him on, then potentially we might see him doing gearing up for a 1-stop if not, extending his stint just that a little bit longer.
Well, one thing I really have to question at the moment, if we see the lap times for Mariah, bear in mind she's carrying damage. She did a 1 minute 50.7 last lap, with Deadline 1 minute 51.7. Yvonne 152.6. Rippon to Terran a 146.4. So a very, very clear 4 seconds a lap quicker at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously in the distance you can just about see. He can, well, in a few laps' time, I think he'll just about see, that beetle of Yvonne's, but having a phenomenal race so far in what can be a very difficult car to handle around this track. But that top three, very close to each other, and I think all struggling a little bit either with tyre wear or damage. So I think Rippin to Terran will be seeing that he's catching these drivers fast.
Do you know what? I think this is going to be good for Yvonne. I think this is going to be the tail of the undercut. I mean, around this track, a new set of tyres, as we know, is worth at least 4 seconds a lap. So, depending on how much fuel she takes on and when the top two come in, we might see Yvonne take the lead of the race. And it looks like at the moment, Deadline is now coming back at Mariah. You've got to say maybe dead softs are better than dead mediums. That's all I can think there.
Potentially. The little rubber that he's got, he's using it, and obviously I think both struggling in equal amounts. Obviously Mariah with the damage, but Deadline with the tyres, as Deadline goes into that inside line.
Yeah, Mariah with the half-second penalty as well, which is not going to be helpful. But these two come together.
Not.
Good respectful racing though. Bertie has actually undercut Yvonne as well, but Yvonne's going to obviously have much longer tyre life than Bertie, so we can see. I think that the undercut around here is powerful. I mean, going round on these dead tyres, although it keeps your track position, I don't know how wise it's going to be long term, Sarah. It's interesting, it's entertaining to see the difference in strategy, but will it work out for them? I guess time will tell. As we're now approaching halfway through the race, maybe these drivers are going to be thinking about one stop potentially. As Deadline comes in, followed by Yvonne. Sorry, Mariah, who Yvonne is back down in P6 still, who I'm watching for the undercut. Mariah has saved a lot on the fuel side, 6% more than Deadline. However, it's going to have to pit for longer due to that damage that she was carrying on their front left and front aero. So Rippon Terran takes the lead for the moment, Sarah.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'd be very happy to see his good feature race so far. He'll be looking, nothing in front of him at the moment. So let's see what times he can produce.
Yeah, and at the moment he's holding that fastest lap. We'll see what the others do. Yvonne and Piper. Yvonne gets past Piper into the first corner. Good move there, but Piper yet to pit, of course. And Haslett will be next up on. Well, we'll have Piper next up on his hit list as well. Ziggy still circulating after that lap 1 spin. Up to P6, still running those hard tyres, but still can go quite a bit further, I feel. And here comes Deadline out on P7, followed by Mariah on P8. Mariah going for the hards. Interesting. Deadline onto the mediums again. Well, this time he was on the softs last time, rather. Interesting choices in strategy here today.
Yeah, and all potentially kind of will warm up towards the end of the race, when they come in for their second or their third stint. Talking about, unusual or unique strategies, again, you'll probably be one to better speak about this, but you using yourself a unique but aggressive strategy.
Yeah, it's always one of those things. I personally try and always do something a little bit different to the rest of the pack. Usually I go for a more conservative option and try and undercut or overcut people, but in this one for lobby 1, I went completely aggressive, went softs all the way to the end until the last stint for mediums. It worked for me, but on the flip side in lobby 1 we had Louis the Dark Lord do a one-stopper, so there's definitely different methods around this track. But on that you saw Haslett got past Piper that lap. Piper still yet to pit and still not pitting. And somehow has picked up half a second penalty, probably in the penultimate corner on the left-hander. So at the moment, Deadline and Mariah, the previous leaders, P7, P8. So this track has definitely seen a massive undercut. Despite a damage and early pit stop from Ripon to Terran, he is quite clearly out at front at the moment, but obviously will need fuel soon. And Bertie looks like he's going to inherit the lead, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously, you know, a few drivers pitting earlier than thought so. So, yeah, Bertie looks like he will inherit the net lead at the moment. But obviously, the likes of Yvonne, who has previously pitted, as well as other people around, she will, she'll be eager to close that gap to Bertie, as we see Piper still carrying that half-second penalty. Yeah, I mean, Deadline, that pit stop did cost him quite a few positions, but he'll be probably one of the fastest on tracks with a fresh set of mediums.
Yep, and he's up to Ziggy in P6. Ziggy going defensive, making Deadline work for it. Will we see a late lunge? Ripon Terran is in on his pit stops there, but Deadline making P6 into the right-hander. Ziggy didn't put up too much of a fight. It's not entirely always worth it. You don't want to lose yourself time as well. But that gives Deadline another victim. One of his teammates from Team United, Piper, who will be his next victim. But as we know, Piper is on dead tyres, and there couldn't be much more getting out of the way than that, although he's now managed to kind of get in the way. But that is always the deal with this track. That pit lane entrance is a bit wonky, Sarah.
It is a little bit, and you have to kind of hug that right hand side all the way in, obviously to not pick up that pit lane cut penalty, which, you know, I'm sure all the drivers will be fearing for and do not want to get at all.
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely feared by some. And just to note, Ripon Terran has come out of the pits now on medium tyres, and he's not that far behind Mariah or Deadline, despite obviously having that massive damage earlier on. That middle stint there, that last stint, the second one, has definitely done him well, being able to pump in those fastest laps.
Yeah, no, they definitely helped. Obviously, a lot of drivers going on fresher tyres now, so potentially we might see a little bit of a battle for the podium spots.
I think so. At the moment, I absolutely cannot call who's going to win this one. Mariah's lining up Ziggy now, so Ziggy might get 2 passes on him in 2 laps. Well, I'll stay with this one for the moment, see what we can see. And Ziggy actually just gets out of the way. Maybe he served a half-second penalty there, or maybe he's just trying to stay out of it and focus on his own race. Which is an intelligent way of trying to get around this track and just focus on what you're doing and stay out of any trouble. So at the front, Big Crazy Bertie has picked up the lead, but has wearing tyres at the moment, particularly on that front left. Yvonne closing in, pitting later than Bertie. Bertie with that undercut, who's managed to undercut the entire field so far. However, he's going to be needing to pit sooner rather than later. So Yvonne looking for P1, which might happen in the next lap or so. Haslett, who I thought was looking a little bit out of sorts early, now on the soft tyres, looks much happier. But again, looks like he might be needing to pit shortly. Deadline P4, making his way back up the field after that pit stop, followed by Mariah. First race with Nighthawk Racing. Ziggy recovering after a lap 1 spin in P6. Ripon Terran recovering after a really huge shunt, from what I can assume. in P7, but with flying speed so far. Sharon running very high earlier on. Unfortunate not to still be there, but still having a good showing so far. Piper finally has pitted and has gone to hard tyres. Closely followed by Simon, having a good race so far in P10. But this is the fight for P1, Sarah. Bertie versus Yvonne.
Yeah, and you see Yvonne on the back of Bertie now. And like I said earlier, we know that also these two have been battling it out. So I'm sure, you know, Yvonne will be determined to get past Bertie if she can.
Yeah, and there's one thing we know about Bertie. He's a bit of a tyre whisperer. So that's 4 things we now know about him. He's big, he's crazy, his name's Bertie, and he's a tyre whisperer. So I think the move is coming soon. Yvonne looks like she is very happy on a new set of softs compared to Bertie. Yeah, there we go. Out of turn 1. Bertie runs a little bit wide, had to get out of the throttle, and grants Yvonne the P1 for the meantime. I bet those softs feel much, much nicer compared to the Bertie's dead left. Ziggy in the pits as well, pitting in from P6, getting those tyres changed. And adding a bit of fuel. He's going to feel much nicer. With that car, going to feel much nicer on a new set of boots. Ripping to Terran up to P6. It looks like he's much happier in this stint than what he would have been at the end of his first one.
Oh, 100%. And just goes to show, you know, practice makes perfect.
Quite right. And interesting to see a lot of the drivers. Mariah picking up a 1 second penalty for track limits coming through the chicane. That's unfortunate. That actually didn't look that bad to me, but that's GT7 for you. But it's interesting to see drivers going, a lot of drivers going for that hard tyre. But it's the kind of track that, because of a couple of long right-handers, the left tyres really do get loaded around this track. And the tyre wear, along with heat in those tyres, squares with speed. So exactly what you need to do sometimes, go for the harder tyre and save a little bit of your tyre for the rest of the stint. Bertie looks like he's had enough of those softs and he's going to be coming back into the pits. Again, watch for him at the end of the next stint, because I think he's going to undercut a lot of people again. But bear in mind he's in P2. By the time all the pit stops shake out towards the end, maybe he's going to be running quite high.
Yeah, you know, going for quite a unique strategy. But yeah, you know, I think like you said earlier, we might see a lot of cars undercutting and overcutting their competitors to try and get the edge on them.
Undercut, overcut, wobbling freeze there.
Exactly that. Whatever works.
It is good to see the splitting strategy. Bertie going for a full tank, so he's definitely going to try and go longer on this one. Haslett going for a shorter fill. It looks like actually Haslett is going to undercut Bertie out of the pit lane. Haslett onto the mediums. Bertie, will he go to the hards? No, mediums as well. Oof. So just watching Deadline punish his tyres around that right-hander. But he's trying to make up a bit of time on Yvonne, who I feel massively undercut him at the last pit stop. But that said, Yvonne has a lot less fuel, so Deadline will inherit the P1 in a moment, I feel. So yeah, just over halfway, sure. Sarah.
Yeah, just over halfway, and I'm sure you know Bertie, Deadline, sorry, will be eager to get that first place again. But, you know, all drivers having a pretty good race so far, and hopefully, you know, looking into the second half of this race, they'll be able to do, you know, just as much.
Battle for P9, Sarah. Simon versus Piper. Simon on the mediums, Piper on the hards. It is genuinely good to see Simon making such progress. I mean, even from race to race, you can see him gaining time. He's on the back of the eventual winner from the last sprint race.
Yeah, it just goes to show how much, you know, Simon has improved and is continued to improve in.
What a lot of people do not understand coming into particularly league and championship racing is there are so many factors, and it's not just staying on track and doing fast laps. It's learning strategy, learning the finesse of each course, managing your tyres and fuel. There's a lot to think about throughout all these races, and again, always seeing improvement is always such a pleasure to see. It looks like that is the battle on track at the moment. Yvonne is still out in P1, but Deadline will be closing her down, and I'm pretty sure Yvonne will be pitting soon. But other than that, we have Sharon in P7, followed by Ziggy. But Ziggy with a lot more fuel at the moment, so Sharon will definitely be pitting before Ziggy. But other than that, battle for P9 continues.
Yeah, those two getting quite close to each other, and it's good to see, Simon fighting positions.
Yep, there we go. Yvonne in the pits there. 6% of fuel, new set of tyres. Let's see where she comes out after this. I have to say, last week when we actually saw Lewis LBR Racing take the win in the sprint at Deep Forest, and Piper inherited the win after a penalty after a opening lap incident between Lewis and Hassler. But Piper genuinely deserved a podium, if not the win that week. He had a absolutely stellar week at Deep Forest. Not doing probably by his standards quite so well here at Watkins, but again, this is a track which is very much Marmitey for some people, and you can't have a good race every single week, but doesn't mean this won't be the last one of his of this season. It's always good to see him on track, and he's doing quite well. But
he is indeed.
Yeah, up the rest of the field, Ziggy catching up to Sharon.
Yeah, obviously, Ziggy having a little bit of an unfortunate kind of first half of that race with a few mistakes, and but doing really well so far, and keeping his head held high as always.
It looks like he's got the speed this week as well, particularly in P1 in qualifying. So absolutely great to see, and he definitely enjoying that little bit of speed that he has found over the last couple of weeks. Oh, Bertie managing to find himself a half-second penalty. Yvonne going for a move on Haslett as well. So she came out in P5 and has already made her way back up to P4 very quickly. Sarah just didn't want to wait around for that one at all.
No, she did not want to wait around at all for that. But yeah, doing remarkably well, and showing the real speed.
Yeah, and it is also very worth saying that she's not on a preferred control method either at the moment. I believe she's still on the controller because she's away from her wheel at the moment.
Yeah, we all know how hard it is to adapt to the controller once you once you're driving a wheel. Going back to controller, it can be a little bit kind of confusing in a way, and but also a bit more difficult. A lot more factors to kind of factor in.
I completely agree. I had many a conversation with a few drivers, mainly Bert Racer, saying, you must get on the wheel, you must get on the wheel. And it wasn't until I'd been on the wheel for about a year and I tried to use a controller for a race or so, and it felt completely alien to me. So whatever you get used to is your number one. And somewhat off topic, Sarah, I've just been actually listening to the cars. That Huracan, it just sounds... We don't really see the Huracan used on that option. When you catch it at the right angle, it's got a beautiful sound to it. And it's great to see it on the grid. The only Huracan we got in this championship.
Yeah, agree more. Obviously, sounding quite nice, also looking quite nice. And yeah, obviously the only Lamborghini Huracan of the season, and I mean, so far, she's having a remarkable couple of races in that car.
I would also venture to say at the moment, in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, I would definitely think that the speed is reverse order at the moment. Yvonne, on those soft tyres, is catching rapidly. 46.3 final lap. It's caught 8/10 from Ripping to Tear in that last lap. Caught over 2 seconds on Mariah, and probably best part of 4 seconds on Deadline. So this top 4 definitely coming together, and the fastest lap at the moment does belong to Haslett on a 46.1. I can only feel at the moment the drivers that are going for these remarkably long stints, trying to reduce their time in the pits, as noble an effort that is, it does leave you open for an extreme undercut. And by undercut we mean someone jumping onto a softer set of tyres, adding a bit of fuel in, and just pushing a lot harder to be able to pass you out on track later on.
We all know how difficult it can
be. So it's probably a bit early to talk about this, Sarah, but any feeling so far for driver of the day?
I mean, it's got to be. Deadline's in contention for sure. Looks like he's currently on for a double victory of the night, but obviously apart from Deadline, everyone's had a pretty good race so far. Obviously, Mariah, her first Nighthawk event in P2 in the feature race. That's a not bad showing, but I don't know. Yvonne as well, she's had a pretty strong show. I wish I could give the driver of the day to everyone, because everyone deserves it, but
I agree.
I'm gonna go for Deadline and I don't know, I'm torn between Ripping to Tear and Yvonne. What about you? Who would you call your drivers of the day as yet?
Ooh, at the moment, definitely Deadline within a massive shout for just his defensive drive in the sprint. Mariah for the speed that she's showing. The only thing it goes against her is a little move, obviously, in the sprint, a little bit of collision with Ripping to Tearing. Ripping to Tearing himself, in that 4 GT as he goes sideways into the left-hander, has shown great speed and adaptability, just changing strategy on the fly, and despite hefty damage, it's still running B3. And Yvonne and that Beetle, a car which is not the easiest thing to drive, but it's doing so well. So going on an alternative strategy, particularly to the top 2, yeah, it's a great shout for any of the top 4, and I genuinely don't know which one I would pick at the moment.
It's a tough question to answer at the moment.
Unfortunately, we've also had a dropout from Piper, which is unfortunate, but we're still running strong. That does promote, at least, I think he was running P9 at the time, so I think that promotes Simon into P9. But at the moment, battle at the front, it looks like it's going to be hotting up. Looks like same story as early in the race. Deadline going around on dead tyres, and here comes Mariah. Yeah, the driver of the day wise, I'm a bit stumped. I'm thinking Deadline or Ripping to Tearing for very different reasons.
Yeah, same to be honest. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. We might have to give them to them both.
Might well have to. So I think we're about to see a defensive masterclass from Deadline, if he can keep Mariah behind him in the next lap or so. But it's only 10 laps or so away from the end. If I was Deadline, I would definitely be thinking about a strategic stop right now, switching onto a new set of mediums and going helpful as till the end, rather than coasting around on dead mediums and thinking about softs at some point. What would you be thinking at this point, Sarah? What would your strategic brain be thinking?
It's a difficult one.
And you can't say ask me or Pedro.
I mean, you've got the experience behind you, but yeah, I mean, it looks like Mariah is definitely on the charge for that P1, and it looks like Deadline's struggling with tyres yet again. So yeah, I was gonna say, strategically it makes sense. 10 more laps, going at maybe potentially a set of softs or some mediums, just to get another set of mediums to get you to the end.
I think that is the right call for him, to be honest. I think that is, although he's given up track position, he's definitely going for a undercut here, which is different to what he's done for the rest of the race, but I think it's the right time to change strategy.
Yeah, 100%. Taking on quite a lot of fuel as well.
Yeah, some drivers, particularly in the final stint, want to take on a little bit of extra fuel so they have the revs in which to defend. It's a mistake I've made before. I'll just, on under fuel, get out in front of the person behind me. And then you just have nothing to fight with when they cruise up to the back of you. Deadline going for softs.
Damn, that's ambitious.
Okay, I didn't see that one coming. I would have said a set of mediums for sure. Alright, Hassan's going to be watching eagerly to see if he can keep that fastest lap points, but Deadline is no slouch. He's going to be pushing hard as anything now, but I kind of think that might be a little bit ambitious within the final laps. We know he can defend, but can he defend enough to save a little bit of front tyres for a defensive charge from Mariah and Rip into Terran?
Well, I was just thinking back to the sprint race. Obviously, that was around 9 laps, and we have got around 9 laps to go. And obviously, if you remember the kind of state those tyres were in towards the end of the sprint race, that's potentially what's on the cards for Deadline. So it make it harder to both defend and attack going into the last couple of laps.
Yep, and the front three not responding to Deadline yet, staying out on track. I think they all need to be thinking about coming in, end this lap, otherwise they're going to be really, really undercut by Deadline. It's an interesting battle, but Rip into Terran, I think he will be in at the end of this lap because his rear left has about had it.
Yes, it goes back to the old risk versus reward. Obviously, drivers staying out a little bit longer, there's more risk involved. But obviously, track position, or do they, go for a fresh set and potentially, some rewards come in their way, but also they risk their track position.
Exactly that. Ziggy in for his final pit stop. I wonder if he'll go to a set of softs. We'll find out very, very soon. Oh, just about caught Simon. Unfortunately, having a little bit of an incident by himself, catching a little bit of damage. But again, we've seen much improvement from the guy. And he's just about to get slapped by Bertie, who I'm sure will be in for his final stop soon. And Ziggy has gone to the soft tyres, so he's going to be aiming to race Bertie, I feel, by the end of the lap. By the time Bertie's pitted, rather. And Yvonne has caught Rip into Terran. Mariah coming around the final corner. Will she pit? Nope. Will Rip into Terran pit? Looks like he is taking a different line to the corner. Yeah, he's in the pits. I think that is the logical choice. Will that be softs to the end? Will that be mediums to the end? Let's find out. But he's got a decent set of fuel on there at the moment. It's only going to be a quick splash and dash. And then out again. Haslett coming in as well. P4. I think we're in the territory where softs start becoming a logical tyre.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just keeping a kind of an eye on the fuel of both, Mariah and Yvonne, and I'm not quite sure if they'll make it to the end on the fuel that they're carrying at the moment.
Yeah, I think they've still got a pit stop left, Sarah. I'm pretty sure with the fuel, you can put it in mode 6 if you want and coast to the end, but that's a very slow way to go about racing. It's kind of like the Marge Simpson way of the slow but steady wins the race.
Yes. And obviously, you can drive on the rims, but you can't drive an engine that's got no fuel in it.
Very logical words. Right, we do have a very big difference in strategy. We do have Deadline and P3 on those soft tyres already showing a fair chunk of wear. Ripon Deterrent has gone for those mediums. We know he's quick. He's going to be probably a bit slower for a couple of laps than Deadline, but he's definitely going to have tyres left at the end, and Deadline will not if we go by what we saw in the sprint. So definitely split strategies at the moment. I can only feel Yvonne will be wanting to pit this lap, given that that fuel, and maybe Mariah will too. Nope, carries on. It looks like they're all ignoring my very sage-like advice today. By sage, I mean the condiment rather than natural wiseness.
Yvonne comes in.
Do you know what? We've been watching this for 28 laps now, and I still don't know what the order is going to be.
No, it's yeah, it's still that little bit too early to call.
Oh, Ripon Deterrent running it right out to the wall there, but at least he's got brand spanking new mediums. So, Yvonne, what do you reckon, softs?
Yeah.
It looks like she's going to be coming out just behind Deadline, but with much fresher tyres.
Yeah, and obviously plenty of fuel to get to the end.
Just behind Ripon Deterrent on soft tyres. So, at the moment, Mariah out in front. We're not going to count her tyres because she's still going to have to pit, but it's going to be soft Deadlines tyres and mediums for Ripon Deterrent and softs for Yvonne, who has crossed the pit line or pit exit entry and gained his 3-second penalty. That's crucial.
Yeah, unfortunately, that may cost a position towards the end. Obviously, on if you're in the hunt for Ripon Deterrent or Deadline, having a 3-second penalty is going to put some hampers on that.
Yep, certainly will. I feel like we always say this with one driver in the field. We had it with Coach in his first race in Lobby 2 at Interlagos. Will he pit this time? Now Mariah, she is pitting. So doing the coach, not quite the coach approach as I'm going to call it. Hey, there's a new one, Sarah. We've got the coach
Viper
approach.
and the Viper.
The coach approach, the Yeetle Beetle.
Yeah, we like our catchphrases here.
Okay, Mariah in the pits for a final stop. Hopefully going to a set of softs. It's got to be a set of softs.
Yeah. 6 laps towards the end. The drivers started on the softs. They made it work for 9 laps. So, yes, obviously 6 laps. Probably very doable for Mariah there.
So the fastest lap previously was a 46.1 for Hassler. Deadline just did a 44.8, going 1.2 seconds a lap faster. That's crazy speed.
And he wants that win.
He certainly does. So, but Mariah, with a half-second penalty, but fresh softs. Wow. This might be a chase-down victory for the last lap.
Potentially, I'm sure for Mariah it'll be foot to the floor and see how close she can get to Deadline.
Right, so shall we do a rundown 1 to 9? I'll let you take it away if you like.
Yeah, so obviously currently in first we have a Deadline currently having quite a good race, but can he get those softs to the end? In second place we have Mariah with a half a second penalty there, but with a fresh set of tyres she'll be looking to get as close as she can to Deadline. In P3 we have Ripon Deterrent, who's having quite a good race. It's slightly different strategy, but in a car that we know is quite difficult on both tyre and fuel, where he's doing it remarkably well. And in P4 we have Yvonne, who again has just come in for a final pit stop, taking on a set of softs, and she's been challenging those top three all race long. And then in P5 we've got Saber Venom, aka Haslett. Again, recently pit stop with a new set of softs, and had quite a quiet but consistent race. And just behind, commentator's curse. we pan to Bertie, who had a little bit of a spin there, facing the wrong way. Again, similar to Haslett, he's had a kind of a quiet race, and I don't think Watkins Glen is one of Bertie's favourites, but track time nevertheless around here, and I'm sure Bertie will be back next week around Dragon Trail, and showing us the speed that we know he's got. In P6 we have Ziggy. Obviously Ziggy starting in pole position for the feature race, had quite a difficult opening stint, but again having quite a quiet race, but doing well. In obviously losing a place just there, we had Bertie in P7, and P8 we then have Sharon. Again, a really, really good, strong qualifying session for Sharon, picking up a few extra points. But unfortunately, a very difficult first in, a little bit of a collision between herself and Mariah. So, unfortunately losing out to a little bit of damage. But again, a quiet race, but doing really well, and setting some really good lap times. And then rounding out the grid, we have Simon. And it's been good to see Simon fighting a few people for positions. Unfortunately, obviously, just picking up a half a second penalty there as we pan to him. Simon, he's been fighting a few people for positions, which is good to see, and it's good to see his confidence building.
Yeah, quite right. And all good rundown there. Unfortunately, we just missed. Bertie had a spin and Ziggy got by, and now Ziggy's got passed by Bertie again. So something has happened there between the two.
Yeah,
always entertaining.
And I say very similar to you. Obviously, commentator's curse. We pan to Bertie having a little bit of a spin. I seem to do that to you quite a bit.
Yes, I actually said that during the lobby one. I went spin. I think one of the first things I said is, I bet I was being watched by Sarah.
Unfortunately, yes, you were.
As always. So, at the moment, thank you for the rundown, Sarah, but 2.5, 3 laps left to go. Deadline has that dead front tyre. Mariah has fresh softs and is only a few seconds behind. This is the battle on track. Ripping to Terra in third. Yvonne in fourth. It looks like these two are not settled for position, but they're definitely a little bit more further apart than what our front two are going to be it's ever closing between the front two at the moment. But just having a look round. Bertie's picked up a half-second penalty. It's like Bertie and Ziggy are just trading penalties at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunately, this track, not treating the drivers kindly in terms of track limits and obviously the pit lane entry. But yeah, I mean, obviously we know that Mariah's got that tyre advantage over Deadline, so potentially, we've got about, like I said, about 2 laps left now, so it all counts here for Mariah. She's probably got her foot right down on that accelerator, and we'll be looking to get as close as she can to Deadline, who we know will defend and
Tooth and nail. I don't think it's going to be long, Sarah. I think the move's going to be happening very, very soon. Alright, set her own PB.
Will Deadline be able to defend from Mariah, who, like you say, has just set a PB?
Deadline goes defensive down into the chicane. Mariah taking the racing line, will just tuck back in. As long as she doesn't get understeer from being under Deadline's rear wing and then cuts across a curb and get a penalty, she just needs to buy her time a little bit. You can see he can't turn the car going right, And down the inside, a little bit of contact, just about got away with it. Now round the outside for Mariah. Deadline back up the inside, just breaking out a little bit later. She's just all over the back of him at the moment, Sarah.
Yeah, and again, we know, Deadline defending for his life, defending
Undercut.
that win.
Oh! That was unlucky. That's the problem with that corner. If you try and undercut someone, cut back rather, then you can end up on that very, very dirty bit of grass and curbing. But yeah, that's it's not what you want to be doing.
Unfortunately, a little bit of a collision between the two, but Mariah didn't pick up any damage, and we've still got around about a lap and a half left. So all still to play for. But like you say, unfortunately, when not all corners allow you to take a race in side-by-side action.
Oh, sorry, Bertie. We caught that man into the barrier. Ouch. With only 2 laps to go, that's the last thing he would have wanted. And he's going to have a Ziggy chasing him down only a corner or so behind.
Yes, I think obviously going back to the lead is getting very close as we go on to the penultimate lap. So potentially, going for it again.
Yeah, the one thing I've definitely worked out with Deadline is you don't try and cut back on him. You've got to try and pass him on the brakes. And he makes that so difficult for you. And it's a good skill to have. Nose to tail through the chicane. Can Mariah just cut back in on the inside? Actually had to get out the throttle. Throttle going through the chicane. But this is the battle on track. And for the lead. I mean, we couldn't ask for more.
No, yeah, cutting it fine, keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, Deadline is just going to be sticking it on the apex and make Mariah go the long way. She may have newer tyres, but once you get out on those marbles, then those tyres don't count for much, as she does get the cutback. Unfortunately, a little bit of a paint swap in between them, but I don't think any of that was intentional. But this is going to go down to the last lap. And if anything happens between these two, Rip and Tatarian is only 2 or 3 seconds behind. And behind about 5 seconds is Yvonne. So these two have got to be careful on the final lap. Another nose to tail at the moment. But, yeah, well, you've got to be careful, but you've got to push. Mariah looks like he's going to be lining up and moving to turn 1.
Yeah, getting very close to these two drivers here. And again, Deadline defending for his life here. Unfortunately, Mariah seems to be carrying that little bit more speed compared to the Deadline, but Deadline is placing that car in the right places at the right time.
Completely. And fuel's not going to be an issue for Deadline. Mariah might be a little, I think she's got enough, but maybe a bit shy in the final corner, but we'll find out very quickly. And Rip and Terrence keeping a very watchful eye, closing in rapidly as well. Over 2 seconds a lap quicker than these two. Deadline just showing that he can hold up someone on newer tyres. And here, a little bit of a touch coming through the chicane. Got away with it. I think the speed from Deadline having to lift off really caught Mariah out. She attempts to go round the outside of the long right-hander. Deadline cuts across into defensive position for the next left-hander. Half a lap to go, Sarah.
Yeah, and still very close to each other. Going side by side again here. Mariah looking for that switch back, but again, Deadline, placing the car in the right place at the right time.
Round the outside.
By side into here.
She's got him round it outside. Gets a better drive out the corner. Will Deadline try and brake later and go down the inside? Little bit of touching into the corner. Switch back from Mariah. I think that's it. Great move from Mariah. Great driving. And Deadline attempted to take back P1, but you have to be careful. Rip and Terra's right behind him now as well.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show, Mariah having that little bit more tyre life compared to Deadline really did help her to, put that power down early.
Yeah, and these three are going to be in the same straight for the very last time, the very last lap. Mariah taking a maiden win in a maiden race from Nighthawk Racing. Deadline third, Rip and Deterrin third rather, and Yvonne in fourth. All 4 drivers within a few seconds of each other at the end. Absolutely outstanding race from those 4. And Haslett not that far behind in P5.
Yeah, no, especially this top five has had a remarkable race.
Yep, completely agree. And Bertie will be coming home in P6 if we just keep it on track. And Ziggy, who's also managed to pick up a bit of front end damage, off obviously had a bit of an excursion off into the barrier at some point. We call him our high speed gardener for a good reason. Do you know what, Sarah? That ending for the top three was a bit of a classic, if you ask me. Last lap, last dive of the last roll of the dice, and last dive of the race as well from Deadline and Mariah.
Yeah, but I've got to say, our night hawk drivers do like to leave it till the last few corners of the last lap.
They certainly do. Simon finishes in P9 and Sharon in P8. Ran very high earlier on. Has definitely done herself proud in this race.
100%.
I'm brief. Oh, what a race from our Lobby 2. It definitely shows that you do not need to be in Lobby 1 to have an absolutely outstanding race. But Sarah, what a last lap. I mean, that was a bit of a classic, if you ask me.
Yeah, kind of brings us back to high speed ring reverse with that last lap, last few corners overtake by Bertie on Sophia. It was very similar to that in the fact that one driver in Mariah had a lot more tyre life compared to Deadline, who was on shall we say, minimal tyre wear, and those tyres had seen some better days for sure. But yeah, Mariah just being able to put that power down a little bit earlier than Deadline, and yeah, unfortunately, Mariah saw the opportunity, and in the end, Deadline couldn't defend from Mariah, and those two, finishing quite close to each other. I'm sure Deadline will be a little bit disappointed that he couldn't hold on to that win, but I mean, what a battle between those two all race long. And Deadline defending for his life. But yeah, I mean, he did remarkably well.
Yeah, and wow, I mean, what a race from these ladies and gents. I mean, we saw different strategies all the way through the field. We saw for Rip and Deterrent. I think it's a race that what could have been if it wasn't for that damage. Hopefully, we'll go back and have a look and see what happened to him. But finishing P3 only a couple of seconds off P2, if I'm honest, in that 4GT is a absolutely brilliant result. But you have to say Mariah taking the win in that Huracan is absolutely astounding, particularly in her first race with us at Nighthawk Racing. Deadline always absolutely outstanding on the brakes and defence. I also feel for him, if he'd perhaps played it a little bit more conservative, gone for medium tyres at the end, maybe it would have been a different result. But we're not in the driver's seat, and maybe is a maybe. And as it has been said with F1 spelled backwards is if. So motorsport, I feel, is the same, and same goes for here at Watkins Glen today. But I've got to say, top four drivers, outstanding racing, one way or another.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's going to be a difficult decision for driver of the day.
Completely agree. But up next, you know what comes next week, don't you? Dragon Trail.
I do.
Dragon Trail. I mean, that is going to be another story and a half, and I'm thoroughly looking forward, not just to Lobby 1, which will be streamed on Sarah's personal Twitch, under Sarah_Hawkey. I'll be racing on my own personal Twitch and YouTube for a driver's perspective. Anyone wants to come join either of us for the commentary or a driver's perspective. And then again, for Lobby 2, which, I'll be honest, I think I enjoyed just as much as actually racing in Lobby 1. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the last few races with Lobby 2, and I look forward to the next one again.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see how the drivers deal with the death chicken.
Yeah, and that's
Also known as the death chicane.
Yeah, you're not kidding. That is going to be catching a lot of drivers out, and anyone who can get through the race without any damage is going to be finishing quite well. So I would urge all drivers to go away, practice that one section repeatedly. No, I'm only kidding. But go away and put in some effort, put in some time and some laps, and learn how to get through the. We will be putting up a driver's tutorial done by our own admin Pedro himself for the race. So I would urge all drivers to check that one out, and hopefully you can learn how to navigate that very tricky chicane amongst some of the other very tricky corners, and give it the respect that it deserves. Dragon Trail itself is a track that we've raced many, many times, but we haven't seen all that often compared to what we saw on GT Sport. But it'd be good to revisit it and have a lot of fun there. But one last word about Watkins Glen. It's provided us a really great race today, and all the drivers in Lobby 2 have done us proud, and I think raced fairly, competitively, and put a big smile on my face.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Right, with that, Sarah, I think it will be on to the podium room where we can hear from the drivers and hear their perspectives of the race, and it's another personal highlight of mine. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, obviously, us two, we're gonna pass over to the drivers in the podium room. So it's making sure that you subscribe to the channel, you like, comment, subscribe, put on that notification bell, and you'll be notified as to when we post a Lobby 2 next week. But as always, my favourite catchphrase of all is Nighthawk over and out, and over to the drivers themselves.
Yeah, honestly, I think overall the event was perfect for me. I had a good race in the sprint and had a great race in the main race. But yeah, I think in the sprint race I had a really good time only because I had a really good start to the race, got myself into P1, and ignoring my moment, I think on lap 3 or lap 4, where I had the 1.5 second penalty, which kind of threw a bit of a curveball in the mix. I think once I kind of recovered from that and got back to first place again, it seemed like everyone behind me just lost control or did something behind me. So I kind of just felt like Moses with the Red Seas just opening up for me, saying this is an easy win. A simple win really. But yeah, a simple win there for sprint race. Couldn't have done anything better, really speaking. Qualifying, I qualified P2. Surprised Siggy managed to set a better lap time. Was not expecting Siggy to be on pole, but hey, I'm not going to disagree on that. It's always good to see Siggy out in front. But yeah, I think then start of the race of Maine. Had a fantastic start thanks to him being the Supra, and we all know the Supra isn't very good at starts. So I'm taking the lead early on, and I don't think I did too much any mistakes really speaking. I think I had like a couple penalties there and again, and maybe some scary moments there. But I think overall, I think Watkins Glen was probably my best track. So I don't believe I had too many mistakes. The only thing I have an issue with was probably my tyre wear probably kicked in a little bit too much during that race. And maybe my tyre strategy wasn't on point compared to some other people. But I'm not complaining. A P2 in the end. And I had a great battle with Light as well. I can't say much. I'm just happy that I've got my first win and also a double podium. I cannot complain at all. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next round, and yeah, maybe to be here again. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it was great.
I was really worried in the beginning of the race when I got the contact with Sharon and got the damage. Thankfully, that didn't end up hurting my car too much from a raw pace standpoint. I've lost some straight line, but I was able to kind of hang with deadline there. Got in front of him right before the first pit. It was a little scary and dicey when I saw he came out on mediums and I was coming out on hards. So it got a little weird. I got worried that I was gonna really throw it away there. But after he pulled out on me a little bit after a few laps and I managed to reel him back in, once I was on his tail right before the final pit, I knew I probably had a solid chance, if not a win in the bag. And then once I saw him come out on mediums and I was coming out on softs, I knew I probably had him as long as I didn't screw anything up. And then I just have to give him a huge commendation for being able to defend on both worse and dead tires. That was incredibly impressive there for the last couple laps. And it was just great fun racing tonight. So I had great fun racing, everyone, and so happy to take home a win at my favorite track.
The sprint race was really fun. The Ford GT had such great pace here at Watkins. I was pushing but trying to look after tires and fuel short shifting. I felt my teammate Hazlitt was holding me up, so decided to get ahead of him to catch those in front. Towards the end of the sprint race, I was on the heels of first place, as I knew the tires were gone on the BMW, unfortunately third place, tried to go for a move that I already had defended going for first place, and got hit then T-boned off into a spin. I recovered and headed after Hazlitt to try and get third place before the end of the race, but with the tires been scrubbed from the spin, it was hard. Qualifying didn't go to plan, just could not get the lap times I wanted. The race was really good from lights out. Made a couple of places by others, squabbling for position, and was going for the top position. Upon catching first place, I was managing fuel and not pushing to get past, going side by side down the main straight. I made a mistake by putting my left tires onto the grass, causing me to spin, hitting the Armco and getting damage. At this point, it was a recovery drive. I pitted for softs and fixed the damage with no fuel, and gunned it for the next 6 laps watching the Delta come down. The last stint everyone was putting softs on, but I chose to go mediums. To me, this was the best move as the soft runners would kill their tires. I was on the back of second and first towards the end of the final lap. Great race, glad I made it.